Welcome to LMC-TV Meet the Candidates. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive, and we're here to talk with the candidates for Mamaroneck Village office in the November 2019 elections. We're joined today by our mayor of the village, Tom Murphy, running for a second term.
Thank you, George.
Nora Lucas, village trustee, running for a second term.
Thank you.
And Kelly Wenstrup, who is a trustee completing an unexpired term and will be on the ballot for a one-year unexpired term.
That's right.
So welcome. I'm very glad to have you here tonight.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
There's so many issues in the village of Mamaroneck. This is just the beginning of a campaign process that will go on until Election Day. And in fact, there's early voting this year. So voting will actually begin in October. But most people, sort of have a practical mindset about what they care about in the community. And I think perhaps the most interesting issue is how the village is going to develop. How is it going to use its land use authority and planning and zoning, architectural review to shape the way Mamaroneck Village looks today and how it looks for the future. Nora, you put a lot of emphasis on this in your tenure on the board. How would you describe what's happened in the last couple of years on land use issues?
Well, I think that while Tom and I were walking, we got lots and lots of comments, but two of the big comments were overcrowding and related traffic concerns and school concerns. And so early on in our tenure, we enacted a moratorium, which we've just ended, and we evaluated the build-out of multifamily housing. And it was a big process. We looked at infrastructure, we looked at units, we looked at every kind of zoning for multifamily throughout the community. And we have just enacted a law that will reduce the potential build-out by about 40%. So I think we've done a lot to preserve the character of the village and to limit big developments. There might be more to do, but I think that's a very big success.
Tom, from your perspective, you're looking at a community that has a certain amount of pressure to develop because it's a very attractive community.
Sure.
You've got a great waterfront, you've got a great commuting situation with the train station. How do you view the needs of infrastructure for the community, and how does that fit into your land use philosophy during your tenure?
Well, George, I think we were kind of at a crossroads when Nora and I got elected. There had been 10 years of pretty much rampant development, and anything goes, and everything got approved, and there was no break. So we got in and we started tapping the brake to try and slow this down. By having a moratorium, there was nothing approved for, I think it was 16 months. Yeah. And now, as Nora pointed out, we passed a law that's going to vastly limit development. But overdevelopment affects your schools, which greatly affects your school taxes. If we have to start building more classrooms at Mamaroneck Avenue School, if we have to hire more police, more sanitation, buy extra fire trucks, because when you provide extra recreation, this all costs money. But also there's a sense that the community had stopped or was in the road to not be a village anymore, not being a friendly village and becoming a city. And we wanted to keep the character of the friendly village, the hometown that so many of us moved here for, and that a lot of people grew up here and wanted to maintain it. I think we've gone a long way in doing that.
Well, and that probably leads us to talk a little bit about yourselves, the reasons that you found yourself here in Mamaroneck and what you've done while you're in Mamaroneck. Kelly, you're the most recent person to join the village board. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I moved to Mamaroneck over 14 years ago. I have 2 kids and a husband that raised my kids here. Really started to get to know the community down at the kickball and the softball and the Little League. And, we came because we fell in love with a particular house and then really fell in love with the people here. So meeting people on the fields, I would always brag to them, would you look at this village? It's incredible. Can you believe we're playing here in this beautiful setting? But I found the people to be incredibly friendly, incredibly welcoming, which is something I hadn't seen in my prior community, and it was tremendous. So I've loved being here, became involved in the Democratic Party, and then served on the Traffic Commission and the Zoning Board, and now have this opportunity to serve as a trustee. And the more I get involved and the more people I meet, the more I know that our best asset is our people. It's been rewarding from the get-go.
And Nora, you've been very involved in the community as well. Mamaroneck resident that you are. Tell us a little bit about your
I'm a Mamaroneck resident,
background.
but I went to Mamaroneck High School. I grew up locally.
So you got to cover both
Yep,
edges.
I do. My father grew up. My father went to Mamaroneck High School. My mother was a librarian at Chatsworth School. So I have strong ties to the community, and Tony and I have, my husband went to Mamaroneck High School, and we've lived in Rhinebeck for, I don't know, more than 30 years now, and so our daughter went to the Rhinebeck School. So we've had both sides of the community. I'm a Girl Scout leader. I've been active in the local landmarks board before I even moved to the village of Mamaroneck. We were about to buy a house. I was appointed. Gracie Pugh got me to join the landmarks board, and I've just been I do love the village, and I feel like I have connections just to all of these 3 communities, and I'm lucky that we can stay here. I think that's I'm lucky to have grown up here, and I'm lucky to be able to live here.
And Tom, tell us a little bit about your story that led you to Mamaroneck and to your involvements.
Yeah, well, I grew up in a city, and I married a woman from Mamaroneck. We raised our children here. I was drawn to Mamaroneck, first of all, because I knew it, and I wanted a place that was walkable. Because having grown up in a city, I wasn't accustomed to the car culture as much as people who grow up in the suburbs. So that was the big attraction. And then, as my children get older, I was a coach, and then I was on a recreation board, and then I was on HCZM, and then Debbie Chapin appointed me to the Board of Trustees, and then I subsequently won a few terms on the Board of Trustees, and then was on the Town of Mamaroneck Board, and then, as folks know, I am now the mayor of the village of Mamaroneck, and it's the best job that I've ever had, and it's been very rewarding. And my children's mother was born in Mamaroneck. My children were born in Mamaroneck. My daughter is currently pregnant, and she's going to have the 3rd generation born in Mamaroneck. They are living in Mamaroneck, and they're going to set their roots down in Mamaroneck. So not only is there a look back, but there's a future here of there's going to be roots here for years and years, and I couldn't think of a better place to have children and grandchildren.
I'll tell you how great it is to be a grandfather when we get a chance.
Okay.
To know all about it. I have 2, and it's fabulous. We talked a little bit about some of these things. Kelly, let's talk about Parks and Recreation.
Sure.
Harbor Island is a jewel. Everybody identifies it as a very unique park, and your tenure on the village board has involved paying attention to Parks and Recreation. What are some of the things that you've and the board focused on?
Well, I'm a co-liaison with Nora to the Recreation Committee. And that has really, to me, the thing we need to do is get out the good word on everything that's available at Harbor Island and everything that's available in our Recreation Department. I know that the fields, we've done a lot to clean them up. So my original use of Harbor Island with the soccer leagues and the Little League, the fields are cleaner. We've got the goose situation a little better under control than when my kids were playing down at Harbor.
That's a serious issue.
It is. We've got a great new Recreation Department head, Jason Pinto, who's done a lot. We have a new redone sprinkler pad, which was spray ground, which is terrific for the kids. And the beach has been open all year in recent years under Tom, which was a big benefit. I mean, people want to be at Harbor Island. It is the gem. The Marine Education Center down there with Kyle is incredible, and she's getting kids down there for birthday parties, learning about our harbor and
that's
ecology.
Unprecedented. You don't see that. I have the privilege now of going all over Westchester County. That is something unique that Mamaroneck Village has.
I remember when that was started a few years back and trying to, and I know the village had to provide some money to keep it going and really provide some seed money. So we've got our priorities straight. We recognize how great the harbor is. And if I could just add for 1 second, the contract, the 17-year contract with Sport Time just ended. And so the village is now taking a look at making sure that year-round tennis is available for residents in the best possible way to serve the village. So there's a lot of good thinking going on right now that I'm proud of.
Right. The issues that relate to Parks and Recreation easily shade into questions of safety in the community, and in this particular case, pedestrian safety. We're a community that you can walk around, and you're also a community that you can drive around. So I know you've made some efforts on pedestrian safety. Nora, can you highlight a couple of those
Well,
things?
I think one big thing that we did was we lowered the speed limit to 25 miles an hour throughout the village. And it's, and we've got these machines all over the village. So I've had one on my street probably for about 3 weeks in different directions. And, it's helpful because you don't realize how fast you're driving. And
They make a difference.
Even though I'm mindful of the speed limit, and I've made my family be mindful of the speed limit, it's great to have these reminders. And that was really an offshoot of the Traffic Commission working with PTSAs in both school districts to have like a safe routes to school plan that really was specific to those schools. So they met with so members of the public, members of the Traffic Commission, members of the PTSA, and members of the police met at each school and did walking assessments to see what we could do in terms of better signage, better curb cuts, safer curb cuts, and lowering the speed limit. So I think that's been a good community effort, and it's supported by a wide group of the community.
And Tom, you put a lot of emphasis into paving roads, making sure that infrastructure is up to speed. Share a little bit about what you prioritized these 2 years.
Well, George, when we came into office, I think it had been almost 4 or 5 years since the village had paved any streets. So the streets were really deteriorating. And I believe that one of the responsibilities of elected officials is to take care of your infrastructure. It might not be sexy, and it might not, be always apparent the work you're doing. But if you don't do that, you're hurting the future. And I think we have a responsibility to, look out for the future. We paved $3 million worth of paving. An average year, you're supposed to do about $500,000–600,000. So, but we wanted to catch up so that next year we can go back onto a regular cycle and keep the village the way the village is supposed to be kept. I just also want to point out that, and kind of bring it back to parks a little bit, is that Florence Park, which is probably our second most used park, we took the time and the effort and the money, and we repaved the 1/3 of a mile walking, jogging track in Florence Park, which hadn't been paved since the early 80s. And was in terrible condition. And a lot of people had stopped using it and stopped walking on it. And that's a thoroughfare for the Mamaroneck area, for children going to school. So that little bit of asphalt really helped the quality of life for people who were living in Mamaroneck. And we were happy to do it. I think what we've done successfully is identify problems, fix problems.
Now, you've mentioned in each of the answers to these questions the way that you've tapped into a series of boards and commissions where you have volunteers in the community. Kelly, you mentioned the ones you've served on, Nora, the ones you've served on. Let's just go over what some of those boards are again so that we know. I've seen Tree Committee, I've seen
Flood
Council of the
Committee.
Arts. Go through each of them just so we have an idea of the volunteer presence that is occurring in the village.
There's the arts, there's the flood committee, there's the tree committee, there's a communications committee, and of course you have all your land use committees. And
All
the
unpaid,
recreation,
all volunteers.
all volunteers,
volunteers.
recreation committee, the arts council does a lot, and
Right.
and the arts and rec kind of work in tandem sometimes, and I really, that's another thing too, is that they share information amongst each other, and they all just want to make the village a better place. I've been in office a long, long time, and I've disagreed with some decisions boards and commissions have made, but I think that everybody who's ever been on a board or commission while I served wanted to do what's best for the village, and we have to tap into that. Whether we agree with them on every subject or not, we have to take volunteers from a broad spectrum of the community.
Kelly, which of these are you liaison to?
I'm liaison to traffic, which will always be my sentimental favorite.
Okay.
Co-liaison with Nora on the Rec Commission, and I am liaison to the Flood Mitigation Advisory Committee, which is terrific. We have the experience and expertise, like it's incredible in the village. We really have a real talent pool to choose from, and they're not only lending their expertise to these boards and committees, but they're educating their fellow members. And in the case of the Flood Committee, Peggy Jackson took me down on a walking tour down in around the Heights, around the Westchester Joint Waterworks,
Right.
to really look at what the issues were.
So the road to nowhere and all those
Yes,
things. that have been-
absolutely. And Andy Spatz is on that committee and has been educating us about what's going on in the industrial area, so that we really know and can address, make sure our Army Corps plan goes forward, how important that is. We're working on stormwater. You just learn so much, and there's a lot of expertise to educate people.
And I don't want to leave out the Committee for the Environment. We'd be remiss if we left them, because they do a
That's
lot
right.
of good work. So I just wanted.
And Nora, which of these committees do you have liaison
Well,
responsibility
with
for?
Kelly to the Rec and Parks, and then I'm also liaison to the Arts Council, and they produce, 3 summer concerts. This year there was a Shakespeare in the Park. They do a poetry live program, which is a poetry program for school children,
Right.
which is wonderful, and that's at the Emblem Theater, so the kids get to actually read their poems, and they are all published in a book. They do, and a series of other, they do an arts and crafts fair, so they have probably 11 activities. They do a movie, like a movie presentation, like a movie series in the summer. So that's a group of 11 really strong volunteers. And then I'm also a liaison with the Tree Committee, and the Tree Committee I think we're about to plant, and we're going to do another batch this fall, but the Tree Committee, they literally walk the streets to find locations where we need trees. They work with the property owners to make sure the property owner wants the tree in front of their house, even though it's really something we can do. We don't have to get that permission. And they've been working on a revamped tree ordinance to make sure that when developers start to develop, they can't clear cut before the properties come to the board. So those are my 3 committees, and I was traffic last year, so.
Well, I mean, it's good, obviously, in a 5-member board, everybody has some area of
Yes.
responsibility, but you all interact. And I think what's really notable is how many volunteers you get involved into the process of looking at public policy issues and so forth. I wanted to go to what initiatives you've made in open government. Tom, things that you think kind of open the doors of government a little wider, a little more trackable. And of course, you've got this great asset that you share with Larchmont Village and Mamaroneck Town. LMC-TV can cover things that people can sit in their home and watch.
Yes. We have, for the first time in the history of the Village of Mamaroneck, and I think in the history of the Sound Shore, we televise our work sessions. That was the first thing that Nora and I did when we got elected. And a lot of people had trepidation about it. And sometimes, it's cumbersome, but I think at the end of the day, it's really important in the Village of Mamaroneck for people to see the process, the thought process, how decisions are made. And sometimes that might not be the smoothest, because we are 5 intelligent people that don't always agree with each other, but we work it out and we come to a consensus. And that's what good government is about. So we opened up that process so that there would be no more backroom deals. There's no more backroom deals in the Village of Mamaroneck. There's no more talking to developers on the side or any of that. Everything is done at a work session in the open, and I'm very proud of that.
The great feature of Mamaroneck Village, everybody agrees, is Harbor Island. And the 2 great advantages is the beautiful waterfront, well, 3 great schools, and also the commute. And connecting that is Mamaroneck Avenue, which is as important and central a major business district as there is in the county. Tell me a little bit about the current realities of Mamaroneck Avenue, how you're working with the Chamber of Commerce, some of the different things that you're doing, because that is really what people see when they come to Mamaroneck for the first time. And generally because there are great restaurants there and there's something going on, some festival affair.
Let me jump in on something that we did last night. We're looking at banning plastic straws in the village. And we had some Girl Scouts come and present, and I think that's a great opportunity for anyone in the community to come be heard. And in fact, one thing that I really emphasize is I want anyone who comes before the Board of Trustees to feel like they're among friends. But we're talking about a plastic straw ban. And before we do that, we're going to reach out to the Chamber of Commerce members, and we're going to ask, how is this going to affect you? I think this is really important, just our approach as a Board of Trustees, in really asking people for input and listening to them, so that we're not making decisions on our own or with only one person or 2 people in mind. We're really listening to the community.
No, that is important. Going back to go ahead, Tom.
Just to the Mamaroneck Avenue, I just want to point out, not only did we repave it, We have hanging baskets, and now for the fall, we're refreshing the hanging baskets with mums. During our tenure, we allowed, we facilitated the people being able to use an app to park, which you see a lot of people
It's very
using.
convenient.
And it's
You
very
see it,
convenient.
you've seen in other communities.
Yes.
So
And there was a lot of pushback against that, but I think it's benefited the village financially, and it's also made it a lot easier for people who use the community. They don't have to worry about, I don't have a quarter, I got to run to the store, I get back, there's a ticket on my car.
Right.
So that's one of the things.
And there's terrific new signage around the village. Tell
Yes.
us about that.
You can find the parking.
Tell us about the signage.
Right. So there was a wayfinding project that came out of the comp plan from 2012. So it was a long
comprehensive
plan, and it was a long time in coming. But the idea was that one of the problems that we have in Mamaroneck is that Mamaroneck Avenue is so busy that people can't park. So it's sort of a good problem to have, but not if you're the person who can't park. So I think one of the most significant parts of these signs is that from various aspects of the village, you can figure out where the parking is. And I think if you're new to the village, you don't know where the many places to park are.
And the
so
points
that,
of interest, too.
and points of interest too. But that combined with the app, I think has made it a lot easier for people to come to Mamaroneck for, whether it's a restaurant or a yoga class, they don't have to circle for parking because they now are able to see where the parking is.
Right. Well, people have been coming to Mamaroneck Avenue now in great numbers. I mean, we had the block party. I guess one of them got rained out, but one of this year, but one of them was just fabulous. And the Firemen's Parade in July that kicks open the carnival. So, and you see about as many people on the street as residentially live in the community. So you know that people are coming in from neighboring communities to sort of be a part of all of this. So let's look forward now. You're running for 2-year terms, Kelly, in your case, a 1-year term to complete a term. What would you like to do going forward? You have certain accomplishments you're going to talk about during the campaign. What do you want to talk about aspirationally, where you want to see it go?
Well, one thing that's it's small, but I think it's also big, is that we did start a food composting program, and it's growing. And as I've been walking a little bit, I've had many neighbors say, "Can we do curbside pickup?" And so that's a question. Can we offset our refuse collection to one day being the big bag of dark garbage and one day being the food composting? So I think that's something that we have to build the program, and I think the program is building. And there's some Girl Scouts that are helping with that too. And I think the other thing is our zoning ordinance was adopted in 1968, and so there's a lot of inconsistencies in it. And so I think one of the things, we've completed the zoning moratorium study and the law, and now we're about to redo the comprehensive plan. I think the next thing that we need to think about tackling is harmonizing the zoning ordinance.
Tom, Kelly, anything that you're thinking about as you look forward to the next term, what you'd like to highlight?
Well, I think after we passed the limitation on overdevelopment law, we talked as a board about our priorities, and one thing I think we all agreed on was infrastructure. I mean, it's just something that we have to stay focused on. We can't rest on that one. Flooding is, as I know from my involvement with the Flood Mitigation Committee, it's a problem, and we need to stay on top of it. We need to deal with our laterals and our storm sewer system, and to the extent we can keep people feeling like their voices are being heard, and we are here to help, and we want to address this based on where their needs are. And it's going to take a village to really address this appropriately, but we're focused on it, and we're going to stay that way.
Tom?
George, I just want to point out, we went through a long and hard process to find a new village manager.
We did.
And in my opinion, we found an excellent village manager who's really getting things done. So I want to give him a shout out. And we hired a consultant. We went through a rigorous process, and the board should be proud of itself for that decision. One of the things I want to work on in the next term is we started a committee called the Vision Zero Committee. And we are very lucky to have a resident of the village of Mamaroneck, Ms. Shannon Purdy, who works for the Department of Transportation, who is very knowledgeable about safe routes to schools, safe cities. So I really want to work on making this, and this has to do with parking too, because the more people we can get to walk and ride their bike to Mamaroneck Avenue,
Right.
better.
and to school, and the better off we are. So I want to make this a more walkable and a more bikeable community. And that's what I want to
Yes.
work on in the next 2 years. And also doing whatever we have to do to get the Army Corps of Engineers plan up and running and implemented.
Well, the county certainly has to make its contribution to that cause. We're getting short on time. We have, however, managed to secure through state county action additional revenue for the village through sales tax.
Yes.
And that
Thank you.
that
Thank
gives
you.
you
Thank you, thank you.
You know, we all participate in this. What do you think? I know it's well before the next round of budgeting. What do you think that additional revenue will mean in terms of your efforts to control property taxes? Is that going to be helpful? How close to you?
I would think that with the projections that the revenue coming in, we would be able to keep it easily below the cap. But I don't want to overpromise.
Right.
But I think people will be pleasantly surprised. People want a tax decrease.
Of course.
And I do too. But that doesn't work well in the long run. But I think that what you and Shelley Mayer and
Steve Otis.
Steve Otis accomplished in Albany was excellent, and it's going to reap benefits in our community and all the communities around here. And you all should pat yourself on the back, and especially you, Judge, because you didn't have to share the wealth the way you did.
Well, I think what you're describing in Mamaroneck Village, and people who are watching this would also live in Larchmont Village and Mamaroneck Town here in the LMC viewing area. The local governments matter. These are the communities you live in. This is we just said, the land use, the recreation, all those things are important. But also property taxes are important. In fairness, people should realize this, the village taxes are the lowest piece
Yes.
that they pay. Actually, maybe
Yes.
the town and the village together is the smallest piece. County's a little bigger, and then of course the school district is
Right. It's the
by
biggest.
far the largest of the
Yeah.
three pieces. But that's all part of it. As we start to wind down the interview, we still have a few minutes left. I want to give you a chance to just sort of talk about anything you want, whether that's something that's more personal, that gave you the reason to run or to run again, or anything that represents what you've gotten out of the time you have been in office. You sort of alluded to it before, but let me give you, we have about 2 minutes left. Let me give you a chance to have a little soapbox.
Well, so I was nervous about running 2 years ago, the actual running, not about being a trustee. And I loved running. I've loved being a trustee. I don't think my job is nearly done, and I'm looking forward immediately to this campaign because we like to walk. I really I want people to tell me what they want and to tell us what they want, and I think so this next few months is a really good opportunity for us to, like, as Ed Koch would say, how am I doing? How are we doing? So that's my short-term goal, finding out how we're doing and hope that people think we're doing well and vote for us in
And
November.
a good, thoughtful, substantive, clean campaign. You respect the people who are running against you. They're good people. It's a discussion about the future of the village, not what we see at the national level where people go after each other's throats.
No.
Kelly, your thoughts to close.
Well, actually, I introduced myself to Nancy Wasserman at a meeting recently. We've been seeing each other around for years, knew each other, knew who we were, but I wanted to introduce myself because I think that civility is something that I wanted to see in village government, that I really craved it when I started getting involved. And not to harp on this, but I just want everyone to know when they come, their views are respected. So that's my big issue.
Tom, you get the final word in just a few
Listen,
seconds.
I would just say that this is the best job I've ever had, both work-wise and elected-wise. I enjoy trying to solve the residents' problems. I think I do that on a day-to-day basis, and I would be honored to have another term.
Tom Murphy, village mayor, running for second term. Nora Lucas, village trustee, running for second term. Kelly Wenstrup, running for her first 1 year full term. This is LMC-TV, Meet the Candidates. I'm George Latimer. Continue to watch LMC-TV all the way up to November 5th. You'll meet all the candidates in all the different races, and then you can make an informed decision. Have a wonderful evening and enjoy.
Thank you.
Thanks, George.